Welcome to Coffee with Viking. I am Mike. Cheers. Session 5, Part 1. We are now on Session 5, which is called Knockout. Part 1 is Pride's Roots. This chapter, which incredibly was written by Nebuchadnezzar, tells of the work God did in the king's life as he wrestled with pride. In his kindness, God issued a warning to Nebuchadnezzar through a dream, but the king did not listen. He was given over to the cost of his sin, but was also graciously restored to his right mind and recognized the power of God. All right, Daniel chapter 4, 1 through 33. Nebuchadnezzar the king unto all people, nations, and languages that dwell all the earth, peace be multiplied unto you. I thought it good to shew the signs and wonders that the high God hath wrought toward me. How great are his signs, and how mighty are his wonders. His kingdom is an everlasting kingdom, and his dominion is from generation to generation. I, Nebuchadnezzar, was at rest in mine house, and flourishing in my palace. I saw a dream which made me afraid, and the thoughts upon my bed and the visions of my head troubled me. Therefore made I a decree to bring in all the wise men of Babylon before me, that they might make known unto me the interpretation of the dream. Then came in the magicians, the astrologers, the Chaldeans, and the soothsayers. And I told the dream before them, but they did not make known unto me the interpretation thereof. But at the last, Daniel came in before me, whose name was Belteshazzar, according to the name of my God, and in whom is the spirit of the holy gods. And before him I told the dream, saying, O Belteshazzar, master of the magicians, because I know that the spirit of the holy gods is in thee, and no secret troubleth thee. Tell me the visions of my dream that I have seen, in the interpretation thereof. Thus were the visions of mine head in the bed. In my bed I saw, and behold, a tree in the midst of the earth, and the height thereof was great. The tree grew and was strong, and the height thereof reached unto heaven, and the sight thereof to the end of all the earth. The leaves thereof were fair, and the fruit thereof was much, and in it was meat for all. The beasts of the field had shadow under it, and the fowls of the heaven dwelt in the boughs thereof, and all flesh was fed of it. I saw in the vision of my head upon my bed, and behold, a watcher and an holy one came down from heaven. He cried aloud and said thus, Hew down the tree and cut off his branches, take off his leaves and scatter his fruit. Let the beasts get away from under it, and the fowls from its branches. Nevertheless, leave the stump of his root in the earth, even with a band of iron and brass in the tender grass of the field, and let it be wet with the dew of heaven, and let his portion be with the beast in the grass of the earth. Let his heart be changed from man's, and let a beast's heart be given unto him, and let 7 times pass over him. This matter is by the decree of the watchers of, and the demand by the word of the holy ones, to the intent that the living may know that the Most High ruleth in the kingdom of men, and giveth it to whomsoever he will, and setteth up over the beasts of men. This dream I, King Nebuchadnezzar, had seen. Now thou, O Belteshazzar, declare the interpretation thereof, for as much as all the wise men of the kingdom are not able to make known unto me the interpretation, but thou art able, for the spirit of the holy gods in thee. Then Daniel, whose name was Belteshazzar, was astonished for 1 hour, and his thoughts troubled him. The king spake and said, Belteshazzar, let not the dream or the interpretation thereof trouble thee. Belteshazzar answered and said, My lord, the dream be to them that hate thee, and the interpretation thereof of thine enemies. The tree that thou sawest, which grew and was strong, whose height reached unto the heaven, and the sight thereof to all the earth, whose leaves were fair, and the fruit thereof much, and in it was meat for all, under which the beasts of the field dwelt, and upon whose branches the fowls of the heaven had their habitation. It is thou, O king, that art grown and become strong, for thy greatness has grown and reacheth unto heaven, and thy dominion to the end of the earth. And whereas the king saw a watcher and an holy one coming down from heaven, and saying, Hew the tree down and destroy it, yet leave the stump of the root thereof in the earth, even with a band of iron and brass and the tender grass of the field, and let it be wet with the dew of heaven, and let his portion be with the beast of the field, till 7 times pass over him. This is the interpretation, O king. This is the decree of the Most High, which is come upon my lord the king, that they shall drive thee from men, and thy dwelling shall be with the beast of the field, and they shall make thee to eat grass as oxen, and they shall wet thee with the dew of heaven. And 7 times shall pass over thee, till thou know that the Most High ruleth in the kingdom of men, and giveth it to whomsoever he will. And whereas they commanded to leave the stump of the tree roots, thy kingdom shall be sure unto thee after that thou shalt have known that the heavens do rule. Wherefore, O king, let my counsel be acceptable unto thee, and break off thy sins by righteousness, and thine iniquities by shewing mercy to the poor, if it may be a lengthening of thy tranquility. All this came upon the king Nebuchadnezzar. At the end of 12 months he walked in the palace of the kingdom of Babylon. The king spake and said, Is not this great Babylon that I have built for the house of the kingdom by the might of my power and for the honor of my majesty? While the sword was in the king's mouth, there fell a voice from heaven, saying, O King Nebuchadnezzar, to thee it is spoken, the kingdom is departed from thee, and they shall drive thee from men, and thy dwelling shall be with the beasts of the field. They shall make thee to eat grass as oxen, and 7 times shall pass over thee, until thou know that the Most High ruleth in the kingdom of men, and giveth it to whomsoever he will. The same hour was the thing fulfilled upon Nebuchadnezzar, and he was driven from men, and did eat grass as oxen, and his body was wet with the dew of heaven, till his hairs were grown like eagle's feathers, and his nails like bird's claws. Through this passage, we see that pride has 2 roots. The first is a failure to see that every good thing comes from God. Daniel 4:30. Is this not Babylon the Great, that I have built to be a royal residence to my vast power and for my majesty's glory? Nebuchadnezzar fell for the myth of the self-made man. Why is this a myth? Because none of us are self-made. It is God who puts us where we are, whether we believe or not. Why is this a particularly dangerous trap for men? Because pride is the devil's greatest weapon, and he definitely uses it to destroy us. Many men look out at what we have and say, I worked for everything I have. Look at what I created by my vast power and for my majesty's and for my majestic glory. Yes, we are called to work hard and perform our duties with excellence, but even the slightest moment of self-reflection will show us that the idea of self-made man is not entirely true. You had no control over the biggest factors contributing to your success, like where or when you were born, the education you received, the society you were born into, the influences that inspired you to succeed, even the genes that gave rise to your talents were gifts from your parents. None of us are truly self-made men. We took gifts God gave us and used them, and to not acknowledge that is plagiarism. For your whole life should have one big footnote. This came from God, not my doing. What does it look like to acknowledge that your blessings come from God? Pride's first root is a failure to see that everything we have is a gift from God. It's always accompanied by a second root, the foolish assumption that the good life will last forever. Nebuchadnezzar assumed he was safe, and relatively speaking, he was. Nebuchadnezzar was the most powerful man in the world in his time. If anyone should have felt secure about the future, it was Nebuchadnezzar. He couldn't be attacked literally. No army in the world compared to Babylon's. He couldn't be fired. He was an unchallenged monarch. He couldn't go bankrupt. He was the world's bank. But you and I both know God has a way of crushing our prideful assumptions. What are some assumptions we make about our future? Nebuchadnezzar faced an unexpected illness. Maybe you've dealt with a similar diagnosis. Our material future is not as certain as we'd like to think. The financial markers can get disrupted. The worst can be disrupted. Relationships and people die unexpectedly. This isn't to say we should go around expecting the worst. Rather, the point is we're not as invincible as we think. With one small flick of the Almighty's finger, everything changes and your empire will crumble. And in those moments, nothing else matters but God. Those struggles have a way of refocusing our attention. Now, how has a struggle refocused your attention back to God? I know mine was pretty much losing everything and having to start over. God, please help me to subdue my pride by acknowledging that every good and perfect gift comes from you. So the question you got to ask yourself is, what has God done to you to help you refocus back on Him? Because sometimes it can be a rough lesson learned, but it's out of love that He has for us. So that's the question to reflect on today's. You all have a wonderful day. Stay blessed. Stay caffeinated. And trust in the Lord with everything. Much love.